Good morning and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. This week we're learning about the books of the Apocrypha, and although these books aren't considered full scripture or part of our Bible, they are inspirational reading and have things to say to us too. A few days ago we looked at some additions to Esther. Today we want to consider some additions to Daniel. And the first of these is called the Prayer of Azariah. Perhaps you remember the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and how they were thrown into the fiery furnace. The issue was there were some unanswered questions about that story. For example, 3 were thrown into the fire, but then the king looked in and there were 4. Who was the 4th person? Well, some say it was Daniel, some say it was Jesus, and some say it was an angel. Another question, what did they do while they were in the furnace? In the book of Daniel, it says they walked around. In the prayer of Azariah, it says they prayed and sang. In this book, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are known by their Babylonian names, and Abednego becomes Azariah. And what this book contains is, first, the prayer he prayed in the furnace, and second, the song that all 3 sang in the furnace. But this book also approaches another interesting topic as well. You see, after the Israelites went into exile in Babylon, they couldn't worship God in the temple, which had been destroyed back in Jerusalem. They were among a different people with different beliefs and customs. And what that means is that their faith had to adapt to their circumstances. And there's an interesting issue for us to consider. How has our faith adapted to our circumstances? And is it weaker or stronger? If you happen to have an Apocrypha, I would encourage you to read the other 2 stories for today, Susanna and Bel and the Dragon. They are short and easy and entertaining reads, and they have long been much loved. Susanna is a story of good triumphing over evil. 2 wicked men were rebuffed by the beautiful Susanna, and so they conspired to say that they had caught her with a young man. Susanna felt trapped, but Daniel came to her rescue. He asked the men separately what kind of tree he had seen Susanna and the young man lying under. When their stories didn't agree, they were exposed as liars, and Susanna's honor was intact. And the point was that good triumphs over evil, and that obedience to God in God's way is the way of the just. Bel and the Dragon is another great story, which is actually 3 stories about how Daniel cleverly thwarted his enemies. First, they had a god named Bel, and the ritual called for the king to put all sorts of food in the chamber, and in the morning it would all be gone, supposedly proving that Bel had eaten it and was real and alive. Daniel arranged for a test. The king put in the food, but before sealing the chamber, Daniel scattered ashes all over the floor. In the morning, when the doors were opened, there were the footprints of the priests and the families who ate the food, having entered by a secret door. Daniel was spared, and they were all put to death. There was also a dragon in that day everyone feared, and whom the king thought of as a god. But Daniel fed the dragon cakes of pitch, fat, and hair, and the dragon burst open, and Daniel said, "Here is what you were worshiping." Finally, the priests were so angry they threw Daniel into the lion's den again, this time for 6 days. But God brought the prophet Habakkuk to bring him food, and Daniel survived. In these stories, we are once again reminded that God is the real God, and that there is no other. And even more, God and good are victorious in the end. As we go through our sometimes difficult days, these are good reminders. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.